Hello everyone, and welcome to this new video. As you can probably tell from the title, we have reached 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I want to firstly say thank you to all of you, because this would not be possible without all of you subscribing and actually watching my videos or sharing them or whatever else. And to celebrate this achievement, I decided to make a Q&A video. I made a post on YouTube and an announcement on Discord asking people to send me some questions that they have. And I'm gonna try to answer almost all of them here. And I say almost every single question because there were a few questions that I wasn't sure if I should include in the actual video. And this is because I thought they were more general questions in the sense of they've been asked before to some extent. Basically, every single question that I'm missing would be something along the lines of what would you do as Mordekaiser into this matchup, or what would you build against this character, or what would you do as this character against this one. You know, stuff that I just get asked every single time on my actual matchup videos. Perhaps I should have included them, but I wasn't sure if they would fit in this particular style of Q&A video. That being said, there is one question that I get asked a lot, but I decided to include it here so I can actually answer it. And this question would be about the matchup videos. A lot of people always ask me, are you going to make more Udyr matchup videos, or Darius, or Garen, or are you going to show a game against this character or that character, or make a matchup video against this character? And I wanted to include this question and answer this one first very specifically because I always tell people the same thing in the comments. So to put it very simply, I just make matchup videos against the champions that I play and with the footage that I have. There were a bunch of people asking for a Yorick matchup video as Mordekaiser, and I would always have to tell them that I couldn't do that simply because I literally did not have footage. When I finally got footage, I made some matchup videos, but I have to record these games beforehand, and if I don't do that, then I have no footage. So it's not that I don't want to put out more Udyr matchup videos, or Garen, or Darius. It's just as simple as I do not have any footage to show. So when I decide to play Udyr again, or Darius again, or whatever else again, then there's gonna be more footage there. When it comes to Mordekaiser, I have a lot of gameplay lying around, but I have to actually edit it and do the voiceover and all that and then post it. Now, with this very specific question out of the way, let's get into all of the other questions. Why did you start playing League? The reason I started playing League is because of my friends. I started playing in 2014, if I remember correctly, and it was around the launch of Vel'Koz. I remember Vel'Koz launched at the time very specifically because when I booted up League of Legends, you had the Vel'Koz login screen, and I would play League with a bunch of my friends, and yeah, that's basically why I started playing League. What was the root reason or the source of motivation since season 8 which made you persist in every subsequent seasons hitting Challenger until nowadays? Basically, I just wanted to remain Challenger because I thought it would be a way to show the fact that I am skilled at the game. In the beginning, there was also the fact that when I would go to school, people would always ask me about my rank in League because there were a bunch of people playing League in my school, and I would tell them my rank and they would always be like, no way bro, that's not true. And then I would actually show them my account and then I would log on it if I had like a laptop at school at the time, and then they'd be like, oh my god, there's no way you're so good. There's also the fact that I had my Challenger backpack and I would carry that backpack to my school a lot. It was basically the backpack I used to carry all my books, and I kid you not, I had people coming up to me to take pictures with me because they were like, no way bro, you have that backpack? So you know, at the time there was that as well, but now it's more like, well, I just want to do it because I think it's a way to show the fact that I'm still skilled at the game. Why do you play Mordekaiser? Because I love torturing myself. Because I find the champion fun. That's basically it. He's not very good right now, and I would say he needs some good buffs, but I don't really mind it. I just enjoy the kit. So because of that, I just play a bunch of Mordekaiser. The main reason I play any of the champions that I play is because I just enjoy them. That's literally it. Will you make make more cinematic videos like you did for Udyr? Would you make more commentary / rant style content? And what improvements / developments do you see yourself making for your channel? For the first question, I think so, yeah. I might actually do one for Darius in the future, I'm not sure, or maybe I'm gonna do another one for Mordekaiser. I've been playing around with the League Editor app for a while now, and even though I'm not really that good at it, I think I'm slightly improving, you know, as time goes on. Now, as for the second question, I just make videos on what I like. And yeah, I think in the future I am gonna make more commentary videos, or you know, videos where I just rant. If I feel like making those kinds of videos, then yeah, definitely I will. And for the third one, I'm not actually sure yet, but I definitely need to get a better uploading schedule because I kinda upload very, you know, randomly. There's times when I upload daily for a while, and then there's times when I upload once every 3 days. Sometimes I don't upload for a week or so, maybe longer. So if I had an actual uploading schedule, I think it would be pretty good, so that would be a good improvement. What is your #1 tip for climbing top lane? This isn't necessarily just a top lane tip, but just an overall tip, which is just play what you enjoy. If you play what you have fun on, at least you're not gonna suffer as you climb, because there will be games that will be unbearably painful, and you're going to lose your mind in them, and it's really good to keep a cool head. And that's made easier if you play something that you actually enjoy. Let's say it's a loss, but you actually had fun during the game, it might not sting as much. But a tip very specifically for top lane could be learn the matchups. You get such a big advantage from just knowing how to play different matchups. For example, if you play Darius into Renekton, it's really good to know exactly what your limits are in that matchup, what runes you can go for, sums, and so on. It takes a lot of time because basically anything and everything can go top lane, so you never know what you're gonna be up against, but learning matchups helps out a ton. I decided to put these two questions together because they were pretty similar. The first question is asking if I'm ever planning on making an unranked to Grandmaster on Mordekaiser, and the second one is asking my thoughts on Mordekaiser and Master and above. Technically, I have made an unranked to Grandmaster on Mordekaiser, but you would have had to actually look at my Twitch when I streamed. And this is because I have reached Grandmaster with Mordekaiser this season. It was around the time when Grandmaster was around 1450 LP, and now it's higher. And the Challenger cutoff is absolutely ridiculous. At the time of recording this video, it's like 2300 LP. It's actually vile. And I've been taking some breaks from the climb simply because I'm not having that much fun in it anymore. I played very consistently and streamed almost daily for an entire month, but there's some factors that have made the climb worse for me, in the sense that I'm just not having that much fun anymore. I'm genuinely tempted to call it at Grandmaster and just start playing on my main account again. I've had my fun, I hit Grandmaster, even though I didn't go all the way to Challenger, I'm fine with that. And it's mostly because of the EUS toxicity, and I will actually make a video on that, because I have a lot to say about EUS once again, like I've said in the past. And as for the second question, I think in Master and above, Mordekaiser tends to struggle quite a bit depending on the matchup and the comp. And that's simply because if you ulti, let's say, a Vayne, you're the one that gets 1v1 in the realm and you literally can't do anything. There's cases where the enemy can literally just kite you out and actually wait for your ultimate to time out, and then they get out and your ulti is wasted. So because of that, you have to know exactly what to build, what runes to go, who to ult, your actual all-in ranges, and so on. Can you do something like a macro guide or general top lane guide for seasons? And the second question is, what are you playing other than League? For the first question, I'd say yeah, maybe in the future I would do it, but it would have to be very in-depth, like the video that I made where I went over every single item in the game. And that video was like 4 hours long, I think. That one specifically with the macro guide or general top lane guide might not be as long, but it would still probably be like 30 minutes, maybe longer. Again, depends on how much info I put in it. What I was actually thinking of making, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna make this because it will take a really long time, is make a series dedicated for beginner players. And it would be called something like League for Beginners, where I go over beginner concepts of the game. And I don't mean beginner concepts like what is freezing or what is slow pushing or whatever, because I don't think a beginner needs to worry about his lane state. When I'm saying beginner, I mean someone that has like maybe 10 hours into the game. So I would explain stuff like what champion ability abilities do, what jungle monsters do, the different types of damage that exist in the game, stuff like that. But again, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to make this one either, because again, it will take a very long time, but maybe in the future it would be something that I am gonna do. And then as for what other games I play, there's actually a lot of old games that I play on my PS3. I'm kind of sad because I gave away a lot of my PS3 games when I was a kid to some other kid and I never got them back. But I still love to play the original God of War games. I have God of War 1 and 2, like the very first ones. I adore Spider-Man and I had like so many Spider-Man games. But you know, as for some recent games that I've been playing and multiplayer ones perhaps, it would be something like Dead by Daylight. If you're wondering what I play in Dead by Daylight, I don't play the meta characters like at all. I don't know, I don't really like them. Maybe very occasionally I'll play some nurse, but I'm not really good at her. So instead I play stuff like Trapper and Wraith and Myers. Another game that I play would be Legends of Runeterra, though I haven't booted it up in a while. I think it's been like a few months now. But occasionally I'll play some games on it. And a very, very recent game that I've been playing is actually Subnautica 2. I've been playing so much Subnautica 2, man. The world that I currently have that is like a multiplayer world has like 60 hours in it. I've finished what is available in the story right now because it's early access, so it's not finished yet. So what I end up doing is just building a bunch of stuff. Do you plan on playing Urgot games in the future? And would you do a legendary / prestige / ultimate skins tier list? For the first question, I played Urgot after his rework a little bit, but I didn't really play him all that much, and now I'm not really interested in the character. And as for the second question, I would have to think about it because there's a lot of legendaries and prestige skins and ultimate skins. So because of that, if I made a skin tier list of that kind, it would probably take like 5 hours, maybe more, depending on how many prestige skins and ultimate skins and legendary skins there are, and depending on how in-depth I go when I actually review the skins. What is your favorite or your main champion? And do you plan in the future to try to reach rank 1 in any server? For the first question, it changes a lot because it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll spam a bunch of Udyr, other times I'll spam a bunch of Garen, maybe I play a bunch of Darius. It just heavily depends. I think right now I'd say it could be Garen, but maybe it's Udyr. And as for the second question, absolutely not. I'm fine with being able to hit Challenger as long as I focus up and use all of my characters. And trying to go for a rank 1 climb would make me lose my mind because I would have to play extremely well and make very, very little mistakes. And there's also the fact that sometimes solo queue happens and teammates lose. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm perfect because I also lose, but it's even worse if you're going for a rank 1 climb. What are your top 5 games of all time and why? Okay, I'm going to put this in no particular order. The first one is going to be League of Legends. This is the game that I've poured the most hours into, and I really like the game. I like the gameplay loop, I like the skins, I like the characters. So you know, this one is an easy spot in the top 5. The second one would probably be Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Bro, that game is so good. The combat feels incredible in that game. The story is kind of basic, and the person they cast to voice Spider-Man I think is a miss, but other than that it's an incredible game. I would play it for hours and hours and hours on end. Then I would probably have to go for Legends of Runeterra. When I was a kid I loved playing Hearthstone, but unfortunately I did not have access to the strongest card in the game, which was the credit card. So because I did not have access to that, I couldn't play with the cards that I wanted. And after a while I just stopped playing Hearthstone because I was like, I'm not really playing the cards that I want and I'm not gonna spend money. Now with Legends of Runeterra, you can get every single card in the entire game for free. You never need to spend $1 on it. I'm being serious. Genuinely, unless you want to have every card day one, don't put money in it. Because in like a week tops of playing 10 hours a day, you can own like half of the cards. It is so easy to acquire every card in that game. And I love the mechanics of it and how it plays and you know, all that. Then for my next pick, I would probably have to go for Dead by Daylight. It might seem strange, but I really enjoy playing the game, even though most of the time I play characters that are complete garbage with setups that don't make a lot of sense or are off meta. I still have a lot of fun. And you know, there's no ranked system. Your only purpose in that game is to try to have fun, I'd say. So because of that, as long as I'm enjoying myself, you know, then no harm, no foul with losing. And then the last pick would be GTA San Andreas. I remember having like a cheat sheet for GTA San Andreas that I kept next to me just to spawn in a bunch of stuff. I would refill my health, I would spawn tanks, I would put a bunch of cheat codes, I would run around that game for hours and hours and hours on end. I loved the missions, but there was one mission in particular that I got stuck on as a kid, and it was like the lowrider mission, where you would have to go and get a bunch of points in like a lowrider competition, and it never worked for me. And the reason it didn't work for me is because the buttons you needed to press to actually make the lowrider move weren't the normal ones that you would use to move the wheels. And I genuinely could not get past that point, so I was always stuck in the main starting area, basically. This person asked 2 questions total. The first one is, how did you come up with the name Federals? The second question is, would you ever want to play pro or semi-pro games? You know, like if high-low streamers invite me to some tournament. For the first one, it wasn't me that came up with the name actually, it was one of my friends. So I'm not entirely sure how he came up with that name. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't know how the name actually came into existence. And then for the second one, yeah, I would play in, you know, some kind of streamer tournament if people invited me in it. But if you mean like actual pro play games, no. There was a time in like season 8 or season 9, maybe even season 7, where I wanted to go pro, but there were some factors that made it impossible for me to do that, and I kind of lost the drive for it. And I know you have to play a lot, and I mean a lot, to actually be a pro player now. And I would have to play champions that I don't like because, you know, stuff like Jace and Mbessa are meta in the top lane, and I don't like those characters, and I would just have to force myself to play them, and I don't want to do that. So no, I would not want to play at a pro play level anymore. Who is your favorite champion gameplay-wise, and who is your favorite lore-wise? In terms of gameplay, it definitely depends on my mood and the skin I play with. For example, I really like to play Mundo with the corporate skin. I like the animations on that skin, they feel very smooth. Even though the kit doesn't change, the actual animations changing is really nice. Another example would be Darius. I don't really like his default skin or his non-legendary skins that much because his walk animation is kinda clunky. But God King and Mecha Kingdom's Darius have different walking animations and I like them more. But I think overall, in terms of everything, I think right now it would have to go to Udyr. I just like the thematic fantasy that Udyr brings to the table. He can swap these stances everywhere very quickly, he can do a lot of damage, he can be tanky, he can go for a lot of builds. There's just a lot that I like about Udyr. And then lore-wise, I actually thought about this one for a bit because I wasn't entirely sure anymore. And this is mostly because I haven't been keeping up with the lore simply due to the fact that the lore is kind of in the garbage right now, and I was actually thinking of making a separate video where I talk about it because, dear lord man, I don't know what Riot is doing with the lore, especially their decision to canonize Arcane, but that can be a topic for another video entirely. Ultimately, my favorite champion lore-wise has to go to one of the Ascended, but the thing is about the Ascended, it's not like I have one that I like more in particular. I just like the story of the Ascended and the Darken. My one favorite piece of lore though, I can say for certain, is where Acacia once stood. In my opinion, it's one of the best pieces of lore that the League universe has, and I highly encourage you to read it as well if you haven't. Why did you choose top lane? To put it very simply, I just wanted a lane where I would 1v1 people and brawl them out. Though this is kind of funny looking back on it, because on top lane when I started to play, I would constantly play with a second player on my lane. Usually we would have no jungler, and so there would be a 2v2 lane. But as I advanced in levels and went from 1 to 30, I started seeing less and less of 2v2s on top lane, and it ended up just being a regular 1v1 lane. And I liked the character archetypes in top lane. I liked those bruisery style champions that could stay in fights for a long time and drain tank. And that's essentially it, it's very basic. I just wanted to 1v1 people, and I liked a lot of the bruisers and juggernauts. What was your favorite season and why? I think my favorite season has to be season 5. And this is because I really liked the slower pace of the game. And there were a bunch of different items. You had stuff like ability haste being cooldown reduction, but the main reason I really liked it is because I thought the pace of the game was slowed down significantly. That's also around the time when I actually started picking up Darius because of the Juggernaut update. Initially, after he got the Juggernaut update, I was put off by his new Q, but I gave it a shot and I started to really like him. Maybe it also helped that he was like completely broken at the time after the Juggernaut update and they needed to nerf him repeatedly, but it would probably have to be season 5, maybe also between season 6 and season 8, somewhere in that time frame. I didn't fully understand this question, but I'm assuming it's asking if top lane is my strongest role, what is my weakest role? I'm sorry if I misinterpreted this question, but this is what I thought this question was asking. I would say my weakest role right now would have to be AD carry. I do not like to play ADC. There's some very specific AD carries that I like to play, like Jhin, Lucian, and Draven, but for the most part, I do not have a lot of practice on AD carry, and overall, I would rather play any other role than ADC. Would you prefer League of Legends if we replaced every lane with top lane? Honestly, probably not, but it would be very interesting. I'm not even sure how that would work exactly. The only way I would see this being possible is if like every lane is completely isolated. Like top lane right now is kind of an island, but maybe you make bot lane an island too by removing the objectives, and then mid lane is just somehow an island as well. Maybe you just make the map really, really large, so then if you try to roam from mid lane, it's basically impossible. So that way every single lane becomes like kind of isolated like in the top lane and it's a 1v1. Maybe even in bot lane you remove one person and you make it a 4v4. But I do not think that would be good. Otherwise, I don't know how it would work if you replaced every lane with top lane. Do you think Mordekaiser still belongs in the top lane meta, and what would you actually change in his kit to make him more reliable in the near future? Until Master, you can definitely make Mordekaiser work in the top lane. Afterwards, it's gonna be a bit harder, but not impossible. You just have to struggle quite significantly. Now, as for what I would change for Mordekaiser, as of the time of recording this video, they are planning to buff him, and I've looked over the buffs and they're okay. But I think they only help him in the short term. It doesn't really fix an actual issue that Mordekaiser has. It just allows him to stat check a bit harder when he uses his ultimate. What I would probably give him is something like giving his W damage reduction or making his pool ground. But the grounding effect would only be when the claw is thrown out. What I mean by this is that once the pool fully ends, the grounding effect ends as well. The actual grounding effect only happens when the claw is out on the ground. And that would be a really, really good buff for Mordekaiser that wouldn't make him broken in the lower ranks, but it would be incredible for the higher ranks. You could still obviously dodge his pool by like just moving out of it, but a Riven can use one of her million dashes to get out of it easily, or Fiora can dash out of it, or Mbessa can dash out of it, or you know, flash out of it. So because of that, he would be way more reliable in the higher ranks while not making him necessarily too much stronger in the lower ranks. Because in the lower ranks, realistically speaking, most people just walk into it anyway or don't really dodge it properly. And it's not like you can't just walk out of Mordekaiser E. It's a pretty slow skill shot, all things considered. There's more things that I have in mind that I would change for Mordekaiser, but I don't want to make this video incredibly long. Maybe in the future I'll make a video talking about those things. I've made a video like that in the past, and maybe I do another one where I talk about even more of my ideas. What is your favorite counter matchup, skill matchup, and easy matchup as Mordekaiser? For the counter matchups, unfortunately Mordekaiser has some really horrible counter matchups, so I don't really like to lane any of his counters. But ironically enough, I don't despise Olaf as much as you'd think. It's still a bad matchup, don't get me wrong, but like I've found sort of a way to fight him. It's still impossible for the most part, but it's like not super horrible. Now, as for a skill matchup, I really like to fight Darius. I'm not entirely sure if it's my favorite skill matchup to fight, but it definitely is one of my favorite skill matchups to fight. Right now, I can't think of any other skill matchup that I like to fight more though. As for an easy matchup that I like to fight, I would probably say Maokai. It's very basic, he can't do a whole lot into you, his Q knockback means nothing the moment you get Rylai, and you can just kind of beat him out really hard at all stages. And for the extra question about my favorite active item on Mordekaiser, I would say it's probably Zhonya's. And these would essentially be all the questions. Once again, I want to thank you all for for actually subscribing and watching my videos and sharing them and all that stuff, because again, it would not be possible to reach 5,000 subscribers without all of you. So once again, I want to say thank you, and I really appreciate the support. Now, with all of this being said, thank you all for joining me in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully very soon.